All righty. We are live here at WVU Football, going deep on a Wednesday night. You may see Berlioz joining us in the background on a Wednesday night. However, I do not expect him to be joining in the conversation. Just a little bit of work here to make sure things appear to be coming through visually and auditorily. So, yeah. We have Timothy Hall joining us, first one in. I do appreciate that. Means he gets my most faithful watcher award. And for that, he wins absolutely nothing. I had hoped to have Justin Couz again, tried before, but we just cannot seem to get our communication in line. That is, of course, Justin Couz from Country Roads Webcast. I will persevere. Welcome, Robert. Hey, we got 6 people watching. Oh, gee, I'm so famous. Plan tonight is to focus on the walk-on issues. That, of course, will focus on the ones for this year. And we should now have most or all of them officially committed, if not signed or enrolled. We actually do have 1 or 2 who have enrolled already. Before I dip into that main event, I'm actually going to start with the past. We have traditionally done well with the walk-on program at West Virginia. Well, in terms of getting good players who help the team, either, a lot of them actually with game time, others providing quality work in practice. You have to play against somebody, and you do need the guys who can imitate or match your upcoming opponent. So even the guys we never see on game day do matter. And some of them end up mattering more. Traditionally, going from walk-on to scholarship player has been a possibility at West Virginia. I am a little concerned about that program because we are over 85 scholarships committed right now. Of course, not everybody has enrolled, so we haven't hit that limit. But how do we give a walk-on a scholarship if we end up with 85 scholarship players? And the quality of the scholarship players is such that we don't necessarily want to force guys out. A few guys still do have to leave, but Bryce Biggs was in a position to get a scholarship last year. Hudson Clement got his. Biggs was still pushing in that direction, then got injured, but he was getting fairly significant playing time on the offensive line. After Malone, Biggs was, sometimes next up or, right after that. How well he will come back from the injury, we don't know. And of course, we have more guys coming in who are pushing, but I expect Biggs to play a significant role this year. I would like to see a little more rotation on the offensive line, and we need guys like Biggs to step up so we can do it. Wilcox last year he didn't play significant time, and he wasn't ready to play significant time, but he keeps working and getting better. And that's the big deal with our walk-on program is the ability to get guys who aren't ready but get ready. That was the thing with Clement. We should have given him a scholarship, right out of WVU. Oh, we do have a guest. I invited Couz to join us if he could, and he is here. And on the screen, the king is in the house. Welcome, sir.
Hey, what's up, Forrest? How you doing?
Well, hey, I am better. I am basking in the glow of your presence.
Oh no, it's the glow. Hey, it's the glare off my forehead.
I had to really work with the lighting to do that. Mine was very bad.
Yeah, it's a challenge sometimes.
And of course, what you guys do not know is that Couz and I may actually be cousins. I'd imagine somewhere along, fifth, sixth, seventh cousin, twice removed. But
somewhere along the line, right?
Yeah, I do have Walkers back down in that part of the state. So
interesting.
Now, and some history there. We had a great uncle who his attentions to the women may have been the reason why his funeral was the biggest in the town at the time.
I hear you.
But
we'll have to talk about that offline sometime and maybe see if there's any connections.
Absolutely, absolutely. They were mostly Wyoming County, but hey,
okay.
Miners went from wherever the work was.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, currently talking a bit about the older walk-ons. A couple of the guys that I thought are most likely to play significant roles this year. Wilcox, if he hasn't hit his ceiling, he could be big at safety for us. Yeah, because we do need that depth. Can you think of somebody that I've missed on the earlier walk-ons who hasn't gotten a scholarship yet? But
has Caden Beiser gotten a scholarship?
I believe. Oh, yes, I think so.
Okay. I struggle to keep up with who has and who hasn't.
Yeah, I mean, I love the videos they do, but keeping the name straight later is not my greatest quality.
Correct. Same here.
But have you followed some of the more recent walk-on signings?
A few. I haven't got a chance to watch film on all of them. I've been able to watch a little bit of film on a couple, but not all of them yet. When we get to it, I can talk about it a little bit. But there's a couple that kind of stand out to me. But
that I'm trying to bring up. Let's see. Okay, yeah. I've got them listed by year and trying. Okay, I'm not doing it right. Okay, there we go. It's been a while since I've done one of these, so remembering some of the commands. Looks like we've lost some of your lighting there.
Yeah, it's automatic lighting, and I can't get it to stay on. So.
But it was also
motion sensor lighting.
Oh yeah, I don't move enough for that to work anymore.
Hey, I will say this: I had forgot about a couple of those guys. Judah Price was the best player in the state of West Virginia 2 years ago. Very, very, very talented young man.
And he did win, I think, Scout Team Award at least once last year. So doing enough to get some recognition.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's a chance. I mean, that kid, I was actually surprised he didn't get a scholarship, to be honest. He's really athletic. I think his size might have been a deterrent, but he's fast, and he's really athletic. And, I mean, he broke all kinds of records as a running back in Independence High School, but he's only about 5'5" or 5'6", I think. So,
that can be enough, but you usually have to prove yourself a little more.
Grant Cochran is actually from my hometown. So
yeah,
I'm definitely familiar with him. I've seen him play in person many times.
Part of me, I kind of hate when a good quarterback comes in as a walk-on because I don't want to see him, lose playing time. I'd rather see, I'd rather have them, I can't. Well, shoot, the guy who just came out of Shepherd went to the Bears.
Tyson Bagent.
Yeah, I mean, if he had tried to go to a large D1 school, he may have gotten buried on the depth chart and never, never saw the field.
Right.
So yeah, now there's talk, with the transfer, the portal these days, that some of these guys may come in, get coached up, hit the nutrition and weight room at a level that you can't at a smaller school, and
Right.
maybe be better off for it.
Absolutely.
Come in, spend 2 years, one of them a red shirt, and you still got at least 3. So
yeah.
But yeah, I quarterback is yeah. I mean, most of the positions you got a chance, but quarterback is where you have the least chance to go from walk on to playing time.
Agreed, and it's very, very, very rare. I mean, obviously Baker Mayfield is one extreme example, but it's typically not that. That's definitely usually not the case.
Yeah, and we've had 1 or 2 move on in the last year or so, but we have several walk-on quarterbacks already, including one in this class. So
yeah, I was actually watched a little bit of tape on him. His name has escaped me off the top of my head, but yeah, he's a lefty. I know that.
Yeah, we'll get to that list, and I can't remember his name either. You got people who spend most of their time and energy with these players. I never remember.
Yeah, I can't keep track.
Yeah, I mean, so when I was making this list, it's like, hey, Jaden Bell, son of Grantis Bell. It's like, oh, really? Yeah, I think I knew that sometime.
Yeah, I didn't know.
But yeah, of course, a lot of these guys, quarterbacks, don't even get to play special teams.
Nope.
Yeah, and that's the thing with these. Tyler Kane. That's what I'm going to end up mentioning with a lot of these guys. The linebacker types that Coach Brown says we were short, on special teams.
Yep.
Kane is now listed at 240, which I think is the range. So I think we need him on special teams this year. I don't expect him to necessarily, play defense. Don't know how good he is. We didn't hear a lot about him last year.
Correct.
So yeah, other than the West Virginia guys, anybody else stand out to you from last year's walk-ons?
I'm looking at the list here. Obviously, Luke Hamilton. I hated to see him leave.
Yeah,
but it was for very legitimate reasons. He had a health issue with a family member that played a part in it. So I mean, it was definitely it was totally one of those deals where a transfer was probably better off for him in his life just because of this crap going on. And then let's see. Again, Sam Stoner, another quarterback. I have no idea how good that kid is.
Well, he's gone. The guys at the bottom of the list with what says NOR, it's no longer not on roster.
Oh, I didn't know what that. I was going to ask you what that stood for.
I meant to say that.
Okay.
But yeah, Stoner, I think he left. He left
I guess that explains why they got another walk-on quarterback in this class, because I didn't know they would.
Yeah,
because they have 3 already, or they have 2 now with Stoner gone.
And I guess Parsons from Parkersburg was supposed to announce where he was going today.
He's going to Morehead State.
Okay, he's confirmed that?
Yep, I saw it on his Twitter account just a few minutes ago.
Yeah, because I checked the 24/7 board before I came on, and you're more up to date than I am.
Yeah, it's literally within the last 30 minutes I saw it.
Well, smart decision. Yeah, I mean that's he's better off where he can play.
I got to see him play in person. He's a good, because they played Princeton in the playoffs. He's a good quarterback. Well, it wasn't in person. I'll take it back. I watched him play on television, but he was really, really good. The kid can make most of the throws. The only thing and he's got good size. His arm strength is the only thing that might not be it's probably, to me, the reason he's a walk-on. It's probably his arm strength, and he's not super mobile. I mean, he can move around enough, but he's not super mobile.
Well, and yeah, I mean, Brown is definitely, since the moment he got here, he has emphasized the dual threat quarterback.
Well, and that's, Cochran's not really. I mean, he can run enough to escape a rush, but he's not a dual threat quarterback. That's why I was surprised.
But he's a walk-on.
Right. No, exactly. He is a walk-on. But I tell you what, when you look at walk-ons, here's just my theory. Their main purpose is to be the scout team players for the game week, right?
More than likely, yeah.
That's usually what they do. And if you get different styles of players at each position, because each week everybody you play, for example, just sticking with the quarterbacks.
Right.
One week you might play more of a pocket quarterback. Well, you need one of those on your walk-on roster that can be on the scout team to duplicate that during the week, right? So, to me, it's good to have 3 or 4 different types of players at each position in your walk-on ranks. That way, they can give you the look you need, depending on who your opponent is that week.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it, but given how much Brown pays attention to detail, you are probably right.
Mm-hmm.
He would definitely be planning on that level, and probably several additional levels. So yeah, I mean, you may not play, but you serve a purpose. And again,
Correct.
It's a team, and the team consists of everybody, not just the guys on the field.
Absolutely. And the other, never mind. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I don't think I was actually going anywhere. But yeah, I would. I don't know. I think maybe need to make a point. When we have the Kegler show and can ask questions, I may try to focus on some walk-ons and special teams players this year, because we don't know. I mean, they don't show who's playing special teams on the broadcasts.
Yeah.
Modern broadcasts are fairly hideous compared to what they were 20 years ago, when you only had 3 or 4 games to cover.
Hey, the Carson Everhart story is interesting. Out of Canada.
Yeah, I think he lives in Washington, but was in school in Canada. But yeah, so what's the story? I haven't heard.
My memory's a little fuzzy on this because I researched it months ago. But if I remembered, he's like in his 20s already. He's a fairly older player, isn't he?
Well, I know he's a redshirt senior this year, so he is. He's been around for a while at least.
And if I'm not mistaken, I remember seeing there was a year or two that he didn't even. I'm not even sure he played football for like a year. There was something weird about his story. I remember that was it was odd to me, but yeah, I don't know. He's I see him as a long snapper. See, I didn't realize he was a long snapper.
Well, when I looked up the walk-on list when they were announced in 2023, that's what they listed him as, a long snapper. Then I looked on the roster, and he was listed as a tight end. So I went ahead and listed.
That would explain, if they brought him in as a long snapper, that would explain why they got him. Because when I first saw they got him, I'm like, because it feels like they have 20 tight ends on this team.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, why in the world do they get another tight end? But if he can long snap as well, then that would explain why they got him.
Yeah, of course, doesn't explain why they list him as a tight end on the roster.
No, it doesn't. but sometimes I've noticed those are not always 100% accurate.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like we're calling, edge rushers are getting called outside linebackers. Bandit isn't necessarily being used. I don't know if that's intentional or if that's going to change before the season starts. But, and I do not know who actually writes up those lists before they're put on the net.
Mm-hmm.
So, it might be intentional. It might be just whoever's writing it isn't always perfect.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd like to hear some of these names, come this season, at least in spring, so we have more of an idea of,
Right.
kind of what these guys are up to. Well, let's get up to today's list. Names in red are the guys who are from West Virginia.
A lot.
Yeah. And, anybody who says that Brown doesn't recruit West Virginia talent does not have a leg to stand on. He won't get everybody, but between scholarship and walk on, he's getting most of them.
Yep. And he got the two best players in the state in this class, one on scholarship, one as a walk on.
Yeah. And that's, again, I don't know where some of these guys are going to end up, because I think, okay, cornerback, we're still, the defensive backs and linebackers were a little bit light on. But overall, the rooms are, look at the wide receiver room right now. Where are some of these guys? If Hudson Clement had come in a year later, I don't know if he would get playing time, in the coming year or not. It's just going to be awfully hard to stand out.
Yeah. Well, especially with Bray there now. And did you get a chance to listen to Drew Fabianich's interview with three guys yesterday?
Not yet. I've seen the references. I have not gotten to it.
Jaden Bray, he said, has an absolute killer work ethic. So the kid works his tail off. And that is starting to bleed over onto the rest of the receiver room.
Well, yeah, the whole receiver room has changed. Even last, in 2022, it was not what they needed it to be on a culture level.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Bryce Ford Wheaton and Sam James were both doing their best, but I think they didn't fit. And I think that was maybe causing stresses in that room.
Well, I've heard Brown talk about, now he's never mentioned names, obviously, but I've heard him talk about how they didn't have the chemistry in that room that they wanted. And he even made a comment about one of the receivers. I don't remember which one it was. Somebody asked him a question, and he said if I had brought him in a year or two ago, it wouldn't have worked, because I don't think he would have, because of the room we had. And I don't remember. It may have been Traylon Ray, but I don't remember for sure. But he was talking about one of the receivers on this the 2023 roster.
Yeah.
And he don't think they would have worked. They wouldn't have worked on a previous team. So,
did you see the interview with Rodney Gallagher on I think it's Athletic Aesthetics or something like that?
I did. Very impressive.
Yeah, because he was talking about the difference in in the room, how the guys get along, and I think that's going to just when you bring in a guy like Bray with that work ethic, unless the culture is already working, he's not going to be able to up the level. So yeah, it's I think it just once you get to a certain point, it just keeps building.
Yeah,
and
he's being more intentional about the type of guys he brings in.
Well, I think he's being. He feels like he has a better handle on who can succeed here, which of course is talent and all of that's only part of it, but who can succeed. But I think even last year we lost some recruits who came and visited and didn't quite feel things were good enough.
Right.
That would have been the 2023 class. I think some guys didn't commit because there was still some tension here and there. I can't prove it, and I don't even know if a guy coming in would know that was the reason. But I do think, well, it's kind of like, with the jigsaw puzzle, the more pieces you put in place, the better view you have of what pieces are going to fit where.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it means Brown also, it's not just that he's gotten better at seeing, but it's more visible because you have a better defined team. But yeah, I think work ethic is going to be a huge role. Although you also have guys like because one of the things Gallagher mentioned, was not realizing how much work you have to put in. He's
Yep.
willing. He's always, as a kid, they would practice 3 hours a night,
Mm-hmm.
But that's not necessarily the same as 3 hours in the weight room with, Joseph yelling at you.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, I forgot to keep an eye on the comments there. We've had a few. A list of all the Tom Nikolic or Nikolic, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, awards. That's actually something worth looking into. I mean, I've seen it when it's announced, but I have not kept track of it. So yeah, a list of that would be nice. Not necessarily tonight. What else? Let's see. Okay, Tyler Kane did play special teams last year. And I think we have that from an authoritative source.
Potentially.
But I think, because he was a little light when he got here. But yeah, by the end of the season,
Paul had a chance. Mountaineer Paul had a chance to actually talk to Tyler Kane when he committed, and he was very impressed with him.
I think I saw when he talked about that.
Yeah,
I mean, the impression was he was going to be a definite benefit to the team.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But he was light, and of course, experience is the thing. That so yeah, I am looking forward to seeing more of him this year.
And Runda Reed had a good comment here. Anthony Del Negro is one we didn't talk about.
Oh yeah, well, I'm not sure how I missed him. Yeah, he did. He did play a big role. He did not finish the season as strong as sort of the middle season, I think, but that was partly, I think, some of the rest of the team. But yeah, he should.
Yeah, he actually blocked a kick in the Virginia Tech game, I believe it was 2 years ago.
Yeah, I was trying to remember if it was a block or if he caused the block, or was that one where he blocked it and no, I'm mixing up plays anyway, but yeah, he was definitely, he was brought in for that purpose, and he was a ultra specialist, and it was worth doing.
Yeah, he got his fingertip. It was enough to stop, it was enough to make the kick. He got his fingertip on it, so yeah. I guess that's considered a block, right?
Oh yeah. It does not have to be, more than a fingernail or whatever it takes. And of course, the coaches, I think, even keep track of, when you force a miss just through pressure and not necessarily, you don't hit it, but you maybe make the kicker, throw off their time. And we had 2 or 3. We had a lot of those last year, actually, where the team was just not quite getting there. I can't remember if the TCU game or one, it really made a difference.
Yeah, Sean Martin I think actually blocked it in that game. Blocked one in that game.
Well, they blocked. I think they blocked 2. Sean Martin, and I forget who the other one was.
I think that's an underrated part of our team, actually, is how well they do on field goals and extra points. I mean, they force quite a few misses even when they don't block them.
Yeah, that. And I think that's been more like the last couple of years.
Yep.
And we, of course, a lot of people are mad at Jeff Coons because we've had too many kickoff returns against us. But I think that was more a matter of all of the changes we were having in personnel. Things just were not consistent. I hate to see Oliver leave.
Me too.
Yeah, that was.
I'm like you. I was very high on him. He was my favorite. He was my favorite player in the 2022 class, or at least one of the top 2 or 3 in that class.
Yeah, I would say he was
outside of the ones that were, you know what I mean, outside of the well-known guys like Gallagher and Ray, obviously, but of the guys who were 3 stars or less, I thought he was one of the biggest gets in that class.
And yeah, he was one that you just had that feeling it was going to be special when it happened.
Yep,
it's going to happen someplace else. We don't get many guys who are on the freak list. And,
nope.
Didn't necessarily want to see him do a flip in the end zone, but I wanted to see him make a run worth doing a flip in the end zone.
Absolutely. There's the list of I guess Run to Read put a list up of the Nikolich winners.
Yeah.
That's pretty neat. Thank you for that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And Osman Kamara is actually on the staff now, if I'm not mistaken.
Name is familiar. I've seen it.
Well, no, I'm wrong. He was on the staff. Rasheed Marshall got his spot when he left.
Okay. And of course, that's another thing. I mean, we are really, I think, refining not just the coaching staff, but the entire support personnel here in the last few years. And I think I'm going to love the 2 recent coaching hires.
I like the defensive one. The offensive one, I think it's too early to tell yet. But I like, a lot of people were down on not bringing in Pat White or whatever. I think that's just short-sightedness.
Yes.
To be honest.
The idea that just because you did it well means you can teach it well is just not valid.
And it doesn't mean Pat White's not a good quarterback coach, but it also, there's more to it than that. You have to be a fit with the current staff.
Absolutely.
And you have to be a fit with the offense they're running. And you have to be a fit with – you have to be able to do things the way Coach Brown wants them. And let's be honest, Forrest, if you were a head coach, would you want to bring in the biggest star in that school's history to be one of your assistants?
Everybody is going to start talking about making him head coach.
Exactly. I mean, seriously, would you want that?
No.
I wouldn't either.
And I mean, I just don't know if he would be a good fit.
Yeah, I don't know.
Even, the fame aside, I just don't know. And I do think a guy who's, can work with Green now. He has worked with Green. They know each other. I don't want to see a big change, especially if somebody who would come in and try to change Green's, mechanics. And
right.
No, we don't need that. He's that close to being, exceptional. He knows, okay, his feet have to follow on the reads. He can't have the feet lagging behind, and he has to stop dropping his shoulder on some of the short throws.
Right.
To change those 2 things, he completes 3, 4, 5 more passes a game, short to intermediate especially. And, we've got a completion rate over 60% that some people think is so important.
Yeah.
We're extending drives and scoring more touchdowns.
And his adjusted completion percentage, if you count drops, I read the other day, was actually 62%.
Although, what is it for other quarterbacks if you adjust?
Right. I don't know. I didn't see anybody else's.
Yeah, that's because everybody has to deal with drops.
Right. I get it. I agree with that. But I think that just proves the point that when everybody tries to focus on one statistic and make that their argument, that's a flawed way to go about arguing.
People like numbers because they seem so absolute, but that can be misleading. You accept an answer when it's only a beginning. And
I'm guilty of that myself in the past. But now that I do this, I've gotten a little bit more knowledgeable and know what to look for more. I know what matters a little more. I pay attention more, basically.
Yeah.
To things other than just the numbers. But real quick, I do want to comment on some of these new walk-ons, a couple of them anyway.
Yeah.
First off, Murphy Clement obviously is a cool story about beating Hudson's little brother. He is one of the top players he was the Gatorade Player of the Year in the state.
Yeah.
Scored 4 touchdowns against my hometown team in the state championship game. Very good player. I don't know what position they're going to put him at. He played quarterback mostly in high school, but that's not really his natural position, I don't believe. If you look at his body type, the way he plays, Martinsburg didn't throw the ball a ton. They just give it to him and let him run, and which he did well at it.
Yeah, but, I think they're talking either they're talking running back, wide receiver, or defensive back. I think.
I like that.
And it's not. I don't know if they have an expectation. I think he will, be tried all over the field and see where he works.
Yep. Yeah, he's a little bit harder. He's going to be a little bit harder one to find a spot for than. I mean, Hudson was a wide receiver when he got there, so you knew where he was going to be. It's going to be a little bit tougher with his brother. He has a totally different body type. I was really impressed with the film I saw on I guess it's Michael Davis, the wide receiver out of Wheeling.
I assume that's how it's pronounced. Yeah.
Yeah, I was pretty impressed with him. He seems like a pretty good route runner. I mean, obviously, route running is typically not a strength of any of these guys at the high school level. But I thought he was, he was pretty quick with getting in and out of his breaks and stuff. I liked it. He's obviously very athletic. And then the other one I was impressed with was Quentin Goins, the defensive lineman out of I think it was Jefferson High School. He could be a good pass rusher potentially. He played on the end as like a stand-up D lineman, stand-up D end or outside linebacker type in high school. Has really good ball get off and really, really high motor. I like it. I like him too.
Yeah, I want to answer Rhonda Reed's question here real quick. We were just talking about him. That was Tyler Kane. And yeah, we found out tonight he was playing on special teams the last 4 games, and probably will be playing more on special teams next year. Okay. Yeah. One of the guys some people have been talking about is Ryan Kovaleski. I watched just a little bit of his film tonight, and I like how he hits because he hits straight on.
Yeah.
It is classic, hit the chest, take the guy straight back and down. And you don't see that as much as you should these days.
Yeah. I didn't get to watch his yet. The other one, Trey Bowers from Coal City, who also went to Independence High School, the same high school as Judah Price. He played wide receiver and DB. I like that kid as a DB, man. He can flat out hit. He is a hitter. He comes up when he comes up to hit you. He comes up with evil intentions, and I like it.
Yeah, I mean we've heard talk about that the last few years, but we haven't seen it.
Yeah, I like that kid. He's really all these kids are athletic, or they wouldn't be where they are.
Yeah,
but obviously some stick out more than others. I liked his athleticism as well. They showed a really nice one-handed grab at the beginning of his highlight reel that I was pretty impressed with when he was playing, because he played, like I said, he played receiver and DB.
Yeah.
For Independence, but Independence is a smaller school, so they didn't play the highest level of competition. So he was open a lot, but it's hard to get a feel for some of these kids because their route tree is not that big.
Yeah.
When you're one of the fastest kids in the state or one of the best players in the state, and you're so much better than everybody else, it's you're always open. So it's hard to. You don't really have to run routes very well, So
yeah, that's that being good can be a disadvantage.
Exactly. Good point.
That also brings up the whole bit about football IQ.
Yep.
The athletic ability is one thing, but will you be able to learn the college game? Because route trees, when you and the quarterback have to make the same read and choose the same route or the same top end of the route, that's all. That's not just another level. That's several levels up. And of course, it's what Gallagher didn't know how to do this year. It's what he will be a lot better at next year.
Right.
But it's also why it's like, You see, so every game you see a pass that goes one way and the receiver goes the other.
Mhm.
I don't care how good the team is; it happens part of the time. You just don't want to see it 3 or 4 or 5 times a game, which we haven't been. But it is. I am kind of curious, with somebody like Hudson Clement, whether or not that was one of the questions that kept him from getting a scholarship or offers elsewhere, because you can't judge it from high school.
Yeah, I was wondering about that too, because it had to be something with his measurables, like arm length, height. I mean, he's not that short, so I don't know what it was. Be a
Yeah.
great question, because in the interview last night with Fabianich, they asked him about Hudson Clement, and Fabianich says that he's elite at. I don't know if elite was the word he used, but the first thing he noticed about him was how good he was at getting open, getting separation.
Yeah.
He's really good. He said some guys are just really fast, some guys, but he said he is. And I forget that he had a technical term he used, coach's lingo, and I don't remember exactly what. But basically, it was a way of saying he's good at getting separation. I think he called it separation speed. There's natural speed and there's separation speed. He has separation speed, whatever that means.
I mean, you need that plus a sense of where an opening is going to be.
Yeah.
Somebody on one of the boards compared Clement to Stedman Bailey, and that might be the best comparison I've seen, because when Bailey came in, a lot of fans were saying we were only recruiting him, to get his 2 highly rated friends.
Right.
And then Bailey came in, and next thing we know, we're seeing him getting behind the defense time and again. So everybody said it's the defense is bad. But no, it just turned out that no matter how intently you tried to cover him, he found an open spot.
Yep.
It was a natural ability.
Yeah, Hudson's got it.
But yeah, I mean, I know Coach Brown had said, when he's talking about Clement, that it is guys like this, they'll just have something that's uncertain about them. He wouldn't, of course, he's not going to say what. I know blocking was an issue early on.
Right.
But judging that in high school is also tough, because, they may not be asked to block much. But, and, I mean, that comes, I think we could ask flat out what it was and we would not get a straight answer. I don't think they're going to tell us that sort of thing.
I don't know. Coach Brown's pretty well. At times he's transparent about stuff like that, more so than any other coach.
I mean, if he is asked directly.
Yeah.
But yeah, something like that, I don't know. I don't know if it would be considered too personal. I mean,
right.
Nowadays, all of the things about, revealing personal stuff can get you in serious trouble or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, might ask him someday.
Yeah. And that's like, looking at the Collins kid from Princeton who ran a 4.25 40 at their camp. It's everybody in the state was scratching their head why he wasn't getting more D1 offers.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, and he went and did it at another camp, I think in Virginia or someplace like that.
He did it at 3 camps. Two. He did it at two high level. He did West Virginia, Virginia Tech, and he did it at a smaller, local camp as well.
Yeah, and so again, size, is that it?
Maybe
was because, and it wasn't just speed. I think some of the other tests he really knocked things out of the park.
Vertical leap, he was one of the highest ever to do. He was 39-inch vertical leap.
Yeah,
he can do a windmill dunk, and he's only about 5'8" or 5'9". I'll think to do it.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's how he comes out of breaks or
it could have been any of that.
Question about football IQ or whatever. I don't
know. And again, Coach Brown, he's probably never going to say. He likes to focus on the positives, but
yeah, and I mean, he is a player. Again, breaking into the receiving room is going to be tough this year, but there's going openings for returners.
I think he actually I think that's what he said. If he said he may have a chance to play as a returner early.
Yeah.
But he did say he's a project. So as at the receiver position.
Yeah, and of course, project can be 1 year, 2 year, 3 years. You just don't know.
Depends on the kid. Or the young man, I should say. I don't like calling them kids anymore.
Well, now anybody younger than you is a kid.
I know,
That's
but
the definition.
when if you can die in a war, you probably shouldn't, and vote, you probably shouldn't be called a kid. But anyway.
Yeah, well, at the same time, calling them young men is I think maybe puts too much on them. If we remember their kids, we can excuse mistakes more.
Yeah, to me, when they first come in, they're kids. But if they've been there 2 or 3 years and they're 21, 22 years old, they've lived a little bit. They've had some experience. They can drink a beer now. You're not a kid.
I don't know. Maybe that depends on how you are at drinking the beer.
Well, that's a good point. You can legally drink beer. Let me rephrase that.
Well, back to the walk-on list. I also want to see Clay Ash on the field. Just that very curious. Some people say he was not on the top IMG team, but he still put up some crazy numbers.
Yeah.
And another, it's that we've been so dang good at finding the diamonds in the rough among running backs. The two we brought in this on scholarship, how in heaven's name were they not getting, 5 times as much attention?
It's baffling.
Hey, we may turn out to be wrong. But history these days on running backs, if we pick them, now that's not completely true. Justin Johnson never quite got over the top, and Anderson still hasn't.
Justin Johnson. I actually read. I haven't seen an update, but just a couple weeks ago, he was still looking for a home.
Yeah,
I'm a little bit concerned he's not going to land anywhere.
Well, I think he'll land somewhere, but at what level?
Right.
Right now, he may have offers at lower levels that he doesn't want to take. He may still be trying to stick with the P4 level or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. He seemed to lose his edge as the season went on, but of course he was usually playing during cleanup behind the number 2 line and didn't have much opportunity. Jalen Anderson is the one that still confuses me. And I don't know, with Oliver leaving, Anderson may stay, but he still doesn't have a very clear path to much playing time.
Well, with Donaldson's injury history, which I've heard you mention in your last video, and it's been mentioned by everybody. It's obvious, right? That could be that might also keep him. You need at least 3 good running backs that are ready.
Right. Yeah. But you don't want, a guy like Anderson doesn't want to be sitting there waiting. He wants to be 15, 20, 25 carries a game if possible.
Yeah.
But, he should. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't want it badly enough.
Yeah, I don't know. I do admire him for sticking around, though.
At least so, yeah. He may be waiting to see what happens with the spring, and but we don't know how fast the 2 new guys will come along. We don't know where Price is going to be this year.
Right.
He may, step up enough. Of course, Anderson is a little bit bigger. Price is closer to White's style.
Yep.
But it's nice to be talking about how do you play all of the guys rather than how do you find a guy for the spot.
Yeah, it's definitely. I tell you, I think you can get a good feel or a good idea what the culture's like when you have guys like Nico Marchiol, Jalen Anderson, who could leave and go play somewhere else, and potentially even start somewhere else.
Yeah,
and they stay.
Well, and it's a tribute to the coaches. and to the whole atmosphere. But it's also, and I think football IQ, because if you look at the guys who keep transferring, they do not reach their potential. People
Not
talk about, they talk about freshman quarterbacks coming in and starting right off the bat, but if you look at a lot of them, by the time they graduate, they're not that good.
mm-hmm.
I really think you benefit from the old style sit, wait, and learn.
Yep.
It,
Hey, back to the walk-on list a minute. The Zaire Daniel kid, I've heard really good. I haven't had a chance to watch his film yet, but I've heard really good things about him. Have you had a chance to watch it?
I haven't actually watched the film on most of these guys. And of course, part of the problem is, you're looking at their highlights unless you really go dig.
Right.
So they're designed to look good, but how they go about looking good can make a difference.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I've heard good stuff about all of these guys. And of course, some of it, it's like whoever, hey, this guy's from my area. He's good.
Mm-hmm.
That story.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You definitely want to support your local guys, but I think we are getting not just a higher quality of players, but a higher quality of walk-ons. Yeah. And also, one of the other things I wanted to point out is what 4 of them are offensive linemen.
Right.
Which is one of the areas that's traditionally been good for us on walk-ons, and traditionally good for the West Virginia players.
Nick Malone was a walk-on, was he not?
Yes, he was. Then again, Bryce Biggs a walk-on. I think we've got 1 or 2 others on the line currently who were walk-ons. We also had a couple of walk-ons who transferred out.
Yep.
And may be starting elsewhere. I mean,
there's one. His last name's Ray.
Dylan Ray.
Yep. Yeah. His dad was a West Virginia player, and he's starting at Kentucky, is my understanding, or at least did some last year.
Yeah, and I mean, it's one of those. I was sad to see him go. I'm glad he's doing well, and I mean, it was probably best for him because of the quality that keeps coming in. And it also may not have been a good cultural fit for everybody. I mean, he may not have been feeling happy there.
Yeah, who knows? It's hard to tell.
And by the time he's 40 years old and writing his autobiography, his memory about it may not be as accurate. I should have said, folks, a couple of you have asked questions along the way, but we're, definitely open to more questions. If there is somebody on any of these walk-ons lists that you're curious about, obviously, neither of us have been diligent with film to this point. But also open to questions about the coaches. We've got Cacti FN and Timothy Green saying good things about us, so we do appreciate that. And hey, Cacti, that is a name I don't recall seeing. So if you are new, I thank you. Ask that you do subscribe if you haven't. And Timothy Green, who is one of my true and loyal long-term viewers. Definitely appreciate that. And, I know in terms of the overall season, you are you want to feel good about the season, but you're a little afraid to feel good about the season.
Yes.
I mean, I can't help but feel good about it. To me, the only thing that would be in the way would be more injuries.
Which was a huge issue last year.
Defense 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been not just the number of injuries, but the worst possible players to get injured.
Yeah.
And I want to,
Positions, and it's at positions they already have little depth.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, I want to say that hey, it couldn't happen, 4 years in a row, but yeah, it can. Statistics say it won't, but that's the thing that worries me.
And I hate to say it, but West Virginia's kind of a snake bitten program.
Lately, yeah.
And especially look at basketball, right? I mean,
Oh.
I think it goes back, but even more than lately. I mean, look at the back. Major Harris gets hurt in the national championship game. Pat White gets hurt in the Pitt game. Pat McAfee misses 2 field goals, which never happened. The block out of bounds against Oklahoma. Gosh, that's just 3 off the top of my head. But
if I recall correctly, it doesn't get mentioned, but I think the center also was playing hurt when in the game, the Notre Dame game.
May have been.
I think we were just really screwed overall in that game. Now the thing with Pat White getting hurt, we weren't doing well when he was in there because Pitt had the right defense for the way the offense had been, structured.
Yep. And they didn't, and they weren't willing to change anything at halftime.
Well, they should have. I think that was Rodriguez's biggest flaw was he got so set in running just a handful of read plays that if you had the right defense, you could essentially determine what the read was going to be and be there. So
that's what they did all night.
And when Stewart was named coach, one of the first things he talked about was how essential it was to throw more over the middle, specifically over the middle. And, he told McGee, open it up. And he didn't tell McGee how to open it up or what plays to run, just open the offense. And if you look at the Oklahoma game, it was a very different offense.
I had someone tell me who supposedly is in the know. They seem to be. The stuff they told me they told me more than one thing, and most of it was true and accurate. So I assume this is. But they know someone or are connected to someone who was an assistant on that staff, or somehow on the staff. I don't know if it was an assistant coach or GA or whatever. But anyway, they were on the staff. And apparently, some of the assistant coaches told Coach McGee and or Rodriguez, I'm not sure which one, hey, we need to pass the ball on these guys. Like you just said, we need to look at the middle of the field. And they said, no, we're fine. We're just gonna keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah, and I mean,
which was likely Rodriguez's call. I'm sure he had.
Oh yeah, he's a micromanager. People accuse Brown of that, but Rodriguez is very much the type who controls
what, especially on offense. That was his specialty.
Yeah. I would bet that Stewart was somebody who was telling him we have to do this.
Yeah, and it may have been. I don't know. Like I said, I don't. Yeah, it may have been Stewart. I don't know.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if it was several. But I know he and Stewart clashed a few times from what players ended up reporting, along the line. Which, of course, Rodriguez is a very fiery coach, and he hired very fiery coaches. Right. So, yeah, you're going to get some conflict.
And I don't know if there was conflict, really. I think it was just, hey, here's a recommendation. I think we should try this. And it was, nah, we're good. It could have been more like that. I don't know the tone of it.
Yeah,
anything like that. Well,
that's still conflict. It's just not necessarily aggressive conflict.
Right. Okay. That's fair.
Yeah. But so Timothy Green has a question for you. Of course, I'm not sure if he's talking about offensive or defensive.
This year, probably not, unless. Well, let me back up. Maybe in the portal in the spring. I did hear Drew Fabianic say that they might get one more offensive lineman if one becomes available that they like. but I don't know that it's necessarily their priority. I think it just depends on the player. They definitely want to get more defensive backs, but because they need to build that room. But yeah,
because
so
that's center and right guard are still the worrisome spots.
yeah. I mean, obviously losing Zach Frazier is big. I think Brandon Yates will be okay there once he gets off-season reps for the entire off-season through spring, through fall camp. But I'll tell you what, man, I wouldn't be a bit surprised if Kyle Altuner wins that job. That kid, I think that kid's going to be a star.
He's going to be a star. I would sooner expect him to be at right guard than center if he's going to start this year.
Yeah, agreed. As a freshman, it's tough to play center as a freshman. I agree with that.
Yeah, come on, even Frazier didn't do it. He started out at guard.
True. I had forgot about that.
But but Livingston may still also, step up.
Right.
We don't know. It'd be his third year, I believe, so he should be at that point where he's kind of going to make or break. If he doesn't make it next year, Altuner will most likely take it, in 25. Which means maybe we're going to lose some linemen. I do believe. We lost Katarinchik, but whether we lose them this year or next year, I think some of the guys on the current, it's because it's going to be who moves up to the top two spots and who either starts sliding down or is stuck third on the depth chart.
Yeah, I would say, who knows? This is obviously a theory. I have no proof of this and no knowledge of this, but when they went and got that Xavier Bosley out of Jacksonville State as an offensive lineman, that might have rubbed some of the guys the wrong way. Who knows? Or it may have just made them realize, you know what? I'm not going to see the field. I need to go somewhere else. It could just be that simple.
Yeah, and I'm sure, that probably played a role for Katarinchik.
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to.
The coaches talk to these guys, and I am sure they are very upfront with them. It's like you have to do this, this, and this. If you aren't willing to or aren't able to, you're not going to play. And with some of them, they probably tell them, listen, we don't think you're going to make it. We like you. You work hard, but hey, maybe we think your ceiling's a little lower than we expected.
And I think this staff is very honest with the guys. I really do. I think one of the reasons the culture's so good.
Yeah.
I don't think they're blowing smoke. I don't think they're going to, because they know. Number one, I think they genuinely care about the players, and I think they want what's best for them. And if they know going somewhere else might be best for them, then they're going to tell them that.
Yeah, and Gallagher, one of the things he said was that everybody is treated the same. He said he came in with a higher rating, but he had to earn everything he got. And the guys who are walking on get their shot. And pretty much every coach will tell you that in every sport at every level in the history of the world. But not very many coaches mean it. So,
human nature sometimes overrules that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you've got a limited amount of time. You can't give everybody the same number of reps. So a good player can get lost if they just, have one too few opportunities.
Correct.
But of course, the classic. Cannot remember his name. Brian, professional player, came out of Penn State, went to play for Chicago. Brian's song was the movie.
Oh, Piccolo.
Yeah, Piccolo. Yeah, he was one of those guys that, didn't look good, but he got the opportunities and worked and made it. So it is sort of, I think he should have been at West Virginia. It would have been the perfect story for West Virginia football.
Would it not been?
But it's what, it's what West Virginia football is all about. I love having flashy players, but they have to be flashy, hardworking players.
Speaking of that, I keep bringing this up because it's fresh on my mind, and these Drew Fabianis interviews are absolute gold, man. I mean, you just learn so much from listening to him because he's a player evaluator, and he can tell you things nobody else can. Plus, he was in the NFL for almost 20 years,
Yeah.
so his knowledge is so fun to listen to. But he talked about the type of players they got to have at West Virginia. He said we got to have a certain kind of player here. Back to what we were talking about earlier. He said we've got to have blue collar players.
Yeah,
that's what we have to have here. If you're not a blue collar, he said we can't have white collar players. This is not a white collar state, and if you want to play here, you've got to be blue collar. That's what they look for now. So
yeah, and you've got somebody, I mean, Garrett Green is about as flashy as you can get on the field and sometimes off the field, but the work ethic is strictly blue collar.
absolutely.
And that's why he fits, and he has this great leadership ability. But it would not work with these players if he did not have that type of blue collar ethic.
And Rodney Galler's got it. I mean, you heard that interview he did. He talked about how he was raised.
Yeah,
his dad instilled that in him.
Yeah,
and his mom too, for that matter. I don't want to give his dad all the credit. His mom and dad both. Nico's got that. Nico's got that blue collar mentality.
Yeah. Well, and again, that's why blue collar mentality is part of why you're willing to stay, work, and earn.
Yep.
As if you go back to Green's first couple of years, he was talking about supporting Deggy and what he needed to do and working and learning. He knew this all along. That's why he knew that he needed things, and this staff could help him achieve it.
Yep.
People talk about, Brown doesn't like Green, and
that's the biggest bunch of malarkey.
Yeah,
it was his first recruit at West Virginia.
Well, he recruited him at Troy.
Oh,
they had an offer out at Troy, so
they're so close to each other. He can be brutally honest with Garrett about stuff because they're really close.
Yeah, and he says negative, accurate things about Green. He has always said positive things as well, but some people only hear the negative. Green, I know, hears both. Yeah. And that's what counts.
Yeah, and I don't think he's saying anything in a press conference that he's not telling them in person.
Oh, yeah. He's probably told him several times in person before we hear it in the press conference.
Right, exactly.
And maybe in a lot more precise language.
More colorful.
Yeah, and Run to Read, my understanding is every player, everybody on the staff, all of this can eat in the main dining room and has access to all facilities. I think they get a card that lets them in, and they can pretty much just go at it as much as they want.
That's a good question, actually. I've never been asked that before.
Well, it came up one of the 24/7 boards. Somebody mentioned, hearing about a baseball player walk on who did not get those things. But it seems to have been quite a ways into the past.
Okay.
And rules have changed. It was baseball, not football. They should all be on pretty much the same rules. But it did come up, and somebody mentioned that they get the card, they get the access.
Okay.
And having one place I went to college, they did not. The cafeteria was closed for dinner on Sundays. You only got 2 meals on Sundays, and had to fend for yourself. It was left over from a time when actually teachers invited their students to dinner on Sundays. So
right.
The cafeteria was, professors weren't inviting anybody to dinner. So we were over in the cafeteria, learning where the breakers were because we kept blowing the fuses, cooking food in our rooms. The idea of having essentially ongoing access definitely would make a big, big difference to a walk-on.
Absolutely.
And because some of these guys are going to have the promised scholarships that pay part of their tuition, but man, it adds up. So makes me wish I were younger and a much better athlete right now. I could handle going to a nice facility like that.
Absolutely.
Um,
Well, Forrest, man, I'm on my phone and it's just about to die, so I'm going to have to jump off of here.
yeah, and speaking of food, it is, so I'm an hour earlier here, so I did not eat supper before I started this. And it's also getting time to feed and medicate guys like Bob here. Yeah, he has to get his asthma med. I do appreciate you dropping in.
Yes, sir. I wanted to last time, and it just didn't work out. So I thought I had some time tonight, so I thought I'd jump on with you.
Yeah, I didn't know until this morning I was going to do it, so I didn't get the message out to you. Didn't know if you would see your email in time.
Yeah, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It just depends, on my schedule. But so yeah, I'm glad I was able to make it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it has been good. I wish Justin had a chance to join us. Maybe we can get all three of us on here at some point, or I don't know, maybe me, you, Justin, and Paul all together at one time. I think that would get most of the top. And
you know what? This is totally off topic, and then I got to roll. But I was talking to somebody the other day about West Virginia may have more content creators than any school in America, or at least I'm exaggerating, but I think we're up there.
Especially for ones who are just West Virginia.
Right.
A lot of them, you got guys who cover the Big 12 and that sort of thing, and we get included. But it would be interesting, to see how many people are out there with some
Oklahoma has a lot. Ohio State, I think, has a lot. I mean, most of your blue blood programs have a lot. Surprisingly, there are a few like Michigan. I don't see a whole lot of Michigan channels. I don't see a whole lot of Notre Dame channels. There are certain fan bases who just don't seem to be into YouTube for whatever reason.
It's a particular type of fan that is going to want to spend the time it takes to do this.
Correct.
Yeah, you're not just somebody who cheers on Saturday.
Correct.
And a lot of fans, they may have a lot of fans of the team, but what type of fan?
Right. But there's a lot of us West Virginia guys out there doing this. It's and there's a lot of, and if you look at on the podcast side who do just audio podcasting, there's even more. There's probably at least a dozen or more YouTube plus podcast West Virginia channels out there. It's pretty remarkable, actually. It just shows how passionate we are about our team.
Well, I just think it's because we're the best team. We're the ones worth talking about.
There you go. But I tell you what, though, in today's landscape, that means a lot.
And we are going to be one of the ones most worth talking about in these coming years. I mean, this program is going to be impressive in ways we have never seen.
I hope so, man. I'd love to get these days.
Yeah, I think we're going to take all of the best things from Neyland all the way up to now, and we're knocking out all of the bad things. So think of it that way. All of the best put into one package.
I'm not quite as optimistic as you are, but I love it, and I hope you're right.
Well, we'll get back and talk about it again many times.
That's right. Listen, I appreciate you having me on the show, and we'll do it again sometime. Let's go Mountaineers and Q Country Roads.
Okay. Good night.
Good night.
Well, folks, I think that Couz is probably right. Now, Timothy, I know, is right. Hopefully, Nico will not be a big force until next year, because I don't want Green to get injured this year. But I do believe that he will, have an excellent 2025, potentially 2026. And man, if you look at what we will see more of Boyle this year, so we'll know, about, what we've got there in the spring game. And Khalil Wilkins may end up being the best of all of them. Couz would just talk about me being optimistic, but it's a possibility. Of course, now some of that will depend on how good our new quarterbacks coach is and how long he is there. If he's really good, we have to start worrying about him leaving. And well, of course, yeah, that was earlier days and smaller schools. Well, I'm sure, even now it's, you step down a level and, players are in the cafeteria eating the same thing as everybody else. Only some of the highest, most, P4 definitely, but even once you get out of P4 and into G5, you may be looking at significantly fewer advantages for the players because the schools are going to have less money. The program bringing in less money. And Timothy, I do appreciate that. I'll let Bob know. He has to get his prednisolone. And I have a number of subjects I still want to cover. And I do have some help on a new project. I'm hoping to get some personal stories and background on former West Virginia football players from West Virginia. So be calling that Fill Us In, where you fill us in on what these people were like, are like off the football field. And I hope to have that project, the first installment, here in a couple of weeks, if nothing new goes wrong, or if some of the old things don't go wrong again. Of course, I'm also working on those little things called taxes, so that will get some of my attention. Okay, folks. Thanks for everybody dropping in. Thanks for the handful who are still here to watch me mutter. Again, I did not say it earlier, but if you have not subscribed, please do so. Please make comments when you're watching this on the repeat, the summer reruns or the winter reruns, whatever it is. Share it, tell your friends, and I'm going to call it a night. It's a night.